Hello, hi, I'm Opal Mitchell. I work for the Central Arkansas Library System and I work at the Nixon branch in Jacksonville. And this is my Crafting with Opal program. Hold on, one of my dogs is scratching to get in my lap. Tonight I'm going to be showing you how to sew a fabric bowl cover. So it'll give you a little bit of experience about working with elastic. It's a nice simple project for working with elastic. So that's what we're going to be doing tonight. And let's see, since she wants to be in my lap, I'll show her to everybody. This is Zoe. You'll probably hear her. She'll probably make some noise. She'll probably be messing with my other dog. They've been doing that a lot here during my program, so forgive me. I brought a little spray bottle to spray them with if they get loud again this time, because they just think they have to play when I'm having my programs for some reason. I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to get started with that. It's just going to be a really simple project. I'll show you the one that I made. I didn't quite finish it. I haven't sewed the closing closed yet. But this one, I made it for a different bowl. And I followed a pattern that I have that I printed off the internet. They said to add 2 inches. To me, that kind of makes it a little too long. So I'm thinking 1 inch would probably be plenty. Or maybe even an 1.5 inches. Because it just comes way down the side of the bowl cover. So that's what we're going to do tonight. And at the end of the program, I'll be doing a drawing like I've been doing, I guess, pretty much this whole month. And they'll be for, I think the gift cards I have left are a Michael's, Joann, and Hobby Lobby $15 gift card. So I'll be doing a drawing for one of those at the end of the program tonight. So stick around to the end so you can participate in the drawing. And so I guess we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to get started. I'm going to move myself over here and switch so we can look at I've got my ironing board set up with some, I'm going to start with just a basic white piece of fabric. I'm going to use for the outside fabric something with a pattern, but I feel like getting the design where I wanted it to be is going to be a little difficult if I cut the circle out on here. So I'm going to do it on the white fabric, and then I'll use my white fabric as my pattern for that I'll lay on top of my design. That way I can center it better. So the first thing you'll need to do, let's see, where did I lay? Oh, it's off to the side here. Mine has a bowl cover. You could always measure it, but we'll pretend we don't have one because this way I'll show you how you would do it if you don't have one of those already for your bowl. There's my bowl. And what you're going to do is you're going to try to get the center and get the measurement across of what it is. And mine is about, it's interesting, when I measured the bowl cover earlier it was about 7 inches, but whenever you use this it's about 6.5. Okay, so we're going to add at least 1 inch. I think I'm going to add about 1.5 inches, which will I'm going to be working with 8. Well, no, actually, that's measurement's going to be wrong. If you were going to be doing it where you were drawing all the way around like a whole circle, you would have to know that measurement. But what we're going to do is, since it's 6.5, we're going to fold this piece of fabric up fold it twice, so it's folded into fourths. And so we'll need to figure out the measurements, half of that measurement. So, of course, half of 6 is 3. So that would be another fourth would be the half mark for it. And then you would go and add like your 1 inch to 1.5 inches to it. So this would be 1 inch. And I didn't like doing 2 inches. It seemed way too long. So that would be 1 inch. I would say Yeah, I would only go to, we'll probably try to do like 4 and, was it 3/4? Not quite. Yeah, 2 inches. Yeah, let's do 1.5 inches. I think that would be better, because it just seemed a little too long on my other one when I did that. So what you can do is you take your piece of fabric that you're going to be using and you fold it once, and then fold it twice, and I'm going to just kind of press it a little bit. So, and this is just to get my measurements. I'm going to get something to mark with. If you have something that has you could use your bowl and measure from all the way around it, like adding 1.5 inches. But I found that kind of rather difficult, and I watched a website that showed you how to do it this way. And I figured, oh, in my this is not going to be big enough, because this is only, yeah, that's not quite big enough. Wait, yes it is. I keep messing up. Okay, so half of it is 3. Okay, now I already forgot what it was. When I start saying numbers and talking, okay, so my halfway mark would be 3 1/4. So that's my halfway mark, and to add 1 inch to it, okay. So that was 1 inch, and 1.5 inches would be right here. So right before the 5. Okay. I got this talking. Alright, so that would be where I want it. Right here. At my, because I told you that the 3 was half of it. Well, not 3, but the 3 1/4 is half. And then I added 1 inch, made it 4 1/4, and then I added 1/2 inch, which made it 4 3/4. So that's how tall I want to make it. So I'm going to get this corner, because see, this is folded like so. You want your mark to be here, and then we're going to have it marked this side, because this is your open edges. You don't want to mark where your open edges are at. So let's see if I can try to avoid hitting the camera while I do this. So measure and mark right here at the 4 1/4, and I'm going to kind of do, and then the center too. And so now we're just going to kind of move a little bit each time and make like a dash or a mark, but you're going to keep the end here lined up with that. And just depending on how many how far apart you want these little marks, to keep it straight for you, so whenever you're cutting, I thought this was a neat little trick or way to do this, because the other way worked, it just was really, really awkward. You're not having to deal with trying to keep your lines straight around the bowl. So this kind of gives you a nice little arc there. And what we're going to do is, if you want to connect the dots just to make it easier for you whenever you're actually cutting it, so just feel free to do that. So this is going to be our circle we're going to cut out, and this will be what I'll use to put on top of my other one to do my pattern. Okay, so we're just going to cut through all of the fabric. Hope it works, because I didn't test this way of doing it, because I just followed the other way, and then I saw the video on this. I thought, well, I like that way. And we can lay it over the top of our bowl to kind of get an idea if it's going to work. Okay. So, let's see. That's our circle. And as long as, and that looks about the way I wanted it to be. It's overlapping by about half an inch. So I think that's going to work better than the 2 inches. The 2 inches just, to me, I would do it on maybe a larger bowl. If you were doing a much bigger bowl, maybe I'd add 2 inches. But these smaller ones, it just doesn't seem like you need it. And plus, this one's got a nice lip on it. So it's going to grab it and hold it from coming off of it pretty easy. If it's a glass bowl and it has more smoother edges and you think it might slip off of it easier, then go ahead and add 2 inches. Alright, so now we've got that to work with. So, since I wanted to work with this one, I think I might go ahead and get my marker. I want to get the image in a certain place, so I'm going to move my iron out of the way. This is some leftover fabric I found from a cute little, oh yeah, my comments. Let me try to get the comments to pop up for me. For some reason, Facebook did an update, and unless I make a comment myself, the other stuff won't show up for me. Okay, there we go. So Angela, hi, you're watching, and Lacey was watching. All right. Now my comments will show up, so if people make comments, I'll be able to see them. Okay. So I got to decide what part of my image I want to show. Now, you usually don't want to get this in as part of it, so I want to avoid that. And I think I've kind of decided I'd like to have that dog's face mostly in it, so you get it as close to the edge as possible. But keep in mind, of course, it's going to roll over the edge a little bit. So the face is going to be right there on the edge, and you're going to have elastic right around the very edge here. So I don't know how. I guess I'm okay with it. I'm just trying to use up some. If I'd been doing this for somebody, I might not do this particular image. I would probably go up here where I have a complete pattern of the image where I wouldn't be cutting any of it off. But I'm just making this to make it, so I don't really care about getting the image on there as much as I want to. And I think since this white edge, raw edge, is going to disappear, let's see, whenever your seam, I'm only going to let a little bit of that white edge show, because I know some of it's going to disappear whenever I'll just barely get it in there. And I'm going to flatten out this and press it so it will lay a little more flat, since I put those creases in there earlier. And there's a couple of ways you could do, oops, I'm not centered. There's a couple of ways you could do this. You could either leave it on there and draw all the way around it, or you could pin it down and just cut it. I feel like what I want to do is probably, I think I'll go ahead and draw it this time. And I think I'm going to raise my camera up a little bit more, because Facebook's thing really does cut off, the way it does things now, the way their video does, it kind of cuts off stuff more than it used to. I'm trying to make sure that y'all can see everything I'm doing. I'm trying to keep this as much centered in the middle of the camera, because I have, looking through my view, there's a lot more showing on here than it is probably for you guys. Let me see, that's too close to the edge. So, and it's better, I wouldn't do like me marking it on the side with the pattern, because it's better to mark on the side that it's the wrong side, because you can see your marks better. When you mark on the side that's got the pattern, your marks tend to disappear. So I would probably not do it the way I'm doing it. And if you're just working with just a regular pattern, not something that's a small print type pattern, it really doesn't matter as far as where you situate it. But this one, and I'm going to have a hard time seeing it because of the darker spots on this pattern. I probably would have been better off just pinning it and then just cutting around. Because we just want both of these to be the same size. Because the white one is going to be my liner, and of course the pattern will be the one that will be showing on the outside. I think my marker is getting a little old because it doesn't show up quite as well as it used to. Probably doesn't help that this pattern has dark spots in it too. Okay, so I've got that marked. Now I'm just going to cut it. Alright, and that's kind of cute the way the butterfly is going to kind of be in there too a little bit. I like to try to find things to do with my leftover scrap fabric from projects that I've made for people. Because I really hate just getting rid of my scraps. Especially if there's a good amount of it still left. Ooh. My arm got a little close to my iron there while I was cutting. I'm glad it was cooling off because I might have burned myself if it's been sitting for a moment, so it's starting to cool off a little bit. Okay. Okay, there's that. And we'll probably finish this up a lot faster than I usually do on the other projects that I do here, because this one's a pretty easy one. Alright, so there's that. And you could have done this pattern, you could have cut it out the same way you did this one by folding the fabric and marking it and stuff. You could have left this folded and then laid it on top of the other folded piece and done it. But like I said, since I had a pattern and I wanted to get a certain part of it, then I wanted to lay it out so I could see it. So you're going to put your right sides facing each other whenever you lay them on top of each other. And let's see here. I'm going to have to move some things out of the way, but I'm going to go ahead, because what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, let's see. Gotta look at my pattern again because I'm doing it a little bit differently than I did the last time. I want to remind myself before. And oh yeah, also before we get too far here, we need to measure our elastic too. So let me get my elastic. The pattern I handed out with the people that got the free supplies, and you can always do that with this class. We always do a grab and go type thing where when the program's advertised, you can call up to the library and request supplies for the project. and usually we give you until you can ask for them up to the Tuesday, the end of business day on Tuesday, which is 6 o'clock on Tuesday. You can call up there up to that time to say that you'd like to get supplies for it, and what we'll do is we'll get the supplies together for you so you'd be able to pick them up that following Wednesday or even the day of the program, that Thursday before the program. So they said on doing the elastic, I'm not quite going to follow what they said in that pattern. They said to measure the circumference of the bowl and to subtract 5 inches from it. Well, whenever I didn't like how short that was going to be. You could actually wrap your elastic around it actually too. But you want to subtract at least 2 inches. I didn't want to do 5 on mine. So you could just wrap it around it and see. I like you letting go of it. But try to get it as close to the top edge as possible. And right there, I've got it wrapped all the way around it. So I'm going to mark it with my fingers here. And then I'm going to, she said to subtract, dadgummit. Subtract 5 inches, but I didn't feel comfortable doing that, so I'm just going to subtract about maybe 2.5. So if I subtract 2.5, that would make it right here that I would cut it off. So that's going to be my elastic. And that way, if you need to cut a little bit more off of it, you can. Because once you cut it, you can't really fix it. So I'd rather be a little more, you know, cut less of it off. So if I do feel like I need to cut more off, it won't be a problem whenever I start sewing it. So that's always better. Alright, so now that I've got my elastic, and you're also going to need a safety pin, an actual safety pin for later. So I'm going to go ahead and get me one. You don't want one really, really big. It depends on how big of an opening you're going to have when you're feeding it through. So I try to keep them about the same size as my elastic, not any bigger than that. So if you're working with bigger elastic, then you could go with a bigger safety pin and be fairly comfortable. You'll be able to get it through. But I would definitely not go any bigger than that to make sure that it will fit all the way around on the inside whenever we start feeding it through. So there we go. And I'm going to pin my stuff together. I'm going to set this off over by my sewing machine so I'll have it. And another thing that you're going to need is some needle and thread to sew it closed at the very end. We're going to do the sewing machine on the majority of this. And I will say, if you have pinking shears, I should have went ahead and cut that on mine. I wasn't really thinking. Now that I've got it together, I'm going to go ahead and cut it with my pinking shears and cut my edges. Because that will, if you don't have pinking shears, another thing you could do is, because on circles you want to do this, on any kind of circle pattern. If you don't have pinking shears, what you can do is, when you're going around the edges, to cut a little bit of a snippet, just probably about 1/4 of an inch, a snip, like every, like a little more than 1/2 an inch, about an inch or so, and go all the way around. That helps a little bit. It's more something that you do with garments, but for the bulk of this, it would probably help a little bit if you did that for the inside of it. Actually, I think it's too bulky to cut it that way, so I'm going to cut it while it's in half. And these are my pinking shears. And I'm just going to cut the very edges of it. This just helps with the bulk of the inside area whenever you're sewing it closed. Especially since it's rounded, this will help a lot. Straighter type stuff, you really don't need to use pinking shears on them unless your fabric frays a lot. Okay. Usually I would do this over a basket instead of up on my ironing board. But since I wanted to show y'all, I went ahead and did it up here. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and pin it now that I've got it. And you want to definitely mark where you're going to have your opening. So what I like to do, because you don't want to sew it closed, completely closed, because you're going to have to turn it right side out. So you'll need to mark an area of where you're starting and stopping. So I'm just kind of picking this spot right here. I'm going to use a different color pin because most of my pins are purple. So I got this white one and this yellow one. So I'm going to mark, that's going to be my open spot. So you just want to pin all the way around. And if you're new to sewing, doing curves on a sewing machine is a little more challenging in the beginning. That's why it's always a good idea when you're new to sewing to kind of practice with a lot of straight edges in the beginning. Because it's challenging enough just, you know, learning to sew. So stick with the straight edges first if you can with the projects that you pick, and then slowly, gradually get into the type of stuff that has curved edges to it, because it is a little more challenging. So I'm going to switch this over to my sewing machine. There we go. Oh boy. As I'm fixing this, one of my dogs put her toy in the floor right next to where I'm going to be sitting. So let me move that out of the way. She's so good at that. She thinks that I want her toys too, I guess. Let's lower this down. Alright. And my camera is kind of tilted. Let's straighten that up a little bit. Okay, well, maybe it's a little too low because I need to tilt. There we go. I want to see that really good. And I'm going to change my settings. I noticed on my machine here I have it on a 4 for my length of my stitch, and this is not a bulky project. So it's good to do around a 3 to 3.5 for this type of project, because we're only sewing through 2 pieces of fabric, so that's a good setting. My tension is quite a bit looser, so I'm going to go back to 5 because that's pretty typical on your tension, because we're not going to need it real tight on the tension. Alright, so to start sewing, I'm going to start sewing where my white needle is, because that's where I'm going to, my starting point that I designated. And right now I have my needle all the way over. That's a little close to the edge, so I'm going to move it over. I think I want to move it to the middle, because I want to have a little bit more, a bigger seam on it than that. So, because since I'm getting so close to where I cut the fabric there, I don't want to be quite that close. So this is my seam allowance is going to be more than 1/4 of an inch. It would have been probably right at 1/4 of an inch. This is probably more like 1/2 an inch. Well, maybe not quite. Alright, so it's always better to start with your needle in the project. I'm trying to scoot my feet around so I can... Wow, that's lined up. I want to get close, but I don't want to hit it with my feet. I'm not giving myself a whole lot of room here. Okay. And you always want to back up first on your first few stitches. So I'm going to back up a couple. Then I'm going to sew forward. And be sure to not go too terribly fast if you're not used to sewing circles. And you're just guiding it through. Because it's pulling it through for you. You definitely don't want to push it through, because fabric will definitely get bunched up if you do that. It's better to keep your hands towards the front. Don't ever get them back up underneath there. For one thing, this will hit your hand, or you might sew your finger if you get your hands in there too much. And something like this, you definitely would want to go a little slower, because you're doing a lot of shifting. Even though you can't really tell it, I'm doing a lot of shifting with my fabric. I got some little fuzzies there. Okay. Alright, so I've gotten to my yellow needles, so I know that this is where I'm going to be leaving my opening. And I'm looking, that's kind of a big opening, so I'm going to come a little bit more forward. The smaller the opening you have, the less you have to hand sew. So, alright, so I backed up. That's where I'm going to stop. But you do want to leave enough of an opening that you will be able to turn it right side out. Alright, so we've got the main part of it done. Move that out of the way. And just going to cut off my excess threads because we're going to be turning it right side out. I like these little bitty scissors for just cutting my threads. Okay. Oops, I had another little thread. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to turn it right side out. And if you don't have a point turner, you can use your fingers and stuff for it, but it does help. Like if you ever buy any that fiber fill for how that you can use for making stuffed animals, or I guess pillows and different things that you can buy from like Walmart, or there's any of the hobby stores usually sell it. Let me show you. You can always use one of these. And you can, for these bigger projects, you can kind of, or if you have a knitting needle, you could use a knitting needle to kind of pull out your edges to straighten them out. And what I like to do is press it once I get my edges kind of pushed out. I think that's what I'm going to do before I sew my next, because we're going to be sewing down the edges, close to the edges. But I'm going to press it real quick. So let's raise this up. And you also want to work at those edges too to make sure that you got them all out really good. You can work them with your fingers too. But I do like that little tool there. It works really well. I've got knitting needles, but I tend to have them put up all the time, so since I have those other things, I've bought lots of fiber fill in the past because I've made a lot of dog beds for my dogs because they're little and it's just cheaper to make dog beds for them because I can make them small enough and washable enough that I like to just use old pillowcases to make beds for them. And that way I can wash and dry them easier than most of the stuff that you buy for your pets. They tell you not to wash them the inside anyway. You're supposed to just do the liner of it. I like to wash the entire thing. So that's kind of why my edge. That's why I have quite a few of those little wooden dowels type things to push out my edges with. I took a lot of them to work though for my the sewing classes I do at the library. Well, I can't quite get that as rounded as I want it to be. I was trying to press it nice and neat. There it goes. Now it's steaming up for me. Okay. Once you get it pressed, we're going to take it back over onto the sewing machine. Alrighty. That's tilted a little too much for what I'm going to be doing. Okay. Alright, and so when we do this part, you also want to keep in mind, let's see, where's the opening and the close? On this one, let's see, I'm going to get my other one so I can show you, because I didn't sew it closed just yet. Let's see here, yeah. I do like to start sewing where the hole is, but what you're going to do, you're going to actually sew all the way around on this one, because you're going to leave your opening here, and you want to make sure, since I want to line my fabric up with the edge here, ow, I knew I was going to run into it, that's why I said ow ahead of time. You want to leave enough of an edge here for this to go all the way through. So you want to make sure wherever your needle is, because I want to be able to line it straight up with this. So I'm going to move my needle over and make sure, because you can kind of hold it up there, so if you want to make sure where your needle's going to hit and you want to leave enough of an opening. At least I know if I move it all the way over, that's gonna give me some, well, you can't see. That's going to give me some wiggle room, because there's my needle, and there's the edge of my fabric right here, and there's my needle, and I'm going to sew on that side. So that's going to give me 1/4 of an inch plus a little bit of wiggle room for the area that I'm going to be feeding my elastic through. So, I mean, you could always do it differently if you wanted to not move your needle and actually move your fabric over. you can do that too. You can line it like you have an edge, a marking right here. I could have just done that. I could have just lifted my fabric and moved it over to that, and I could have kept my needle where it was located. And that would give me the same amount of room. I just like keeping it lined up with the edge of my sewing foot. So that's the why I'm doing it that way. I'm just moving my needle. And you can do this with any straight edge sewing that you're doing. Now, of course, you're doing zigzags. You can't do that because that affects your zigzag stitch, because you know it goes back and forth whenever you're doing zigzag stitches. So you can't really do that with that. But any straight sewing that you're doing, you can move your needle however you want to. So I'm trying to position my foot again. I might have to angle this a little bit so I can get my foot on the pedal here. But we're just going to sew all the way around, and I'm going to start with in the fabric there. And I hope I'm not trying to keep this centered. I'm just going to sew forward a couple of stitches, and then I'll back up. And then we're just going to sew all the way around. And maybe leaving too big of a gap. No, I guess that'll be alright. Let's see, I was stopping to look to see where I was. And you go as fast or as slow as you need to keep, to keep everything straight. Okay, I've gotten back around to my beginning, so I'm going to back up a couple of stitches. Alright. And then we can pull it out. Alright. So now, move that one out of the way. I'm just going to move those directions out of the way. Just going to cut my threads. I need to have a little thing to throw my threads in that's closer so I don't have to move all the way over here. Okay, so now we've got that done, and we're going to be feeding the elastic through here where your hole is at. So you'll get your safety pin and insert it into your elastic like so, and then you'll close it. And there's little things that you can buy to feed your elastic through, things like this, that you can buy in the store. I've actually got some of those, but I just I like to do it with the safety pin because I know not everyone, when I'm doing classes, I know not everyone may have something like that, so I want to show you how to do it with what you've got on hand. So you're just going to feed it through your edges here. The original pattern that I handed out, it didn't have a liner on the inside of the bowl cover, and it showed your raw edges. I didn't really like the way that looked, so I went online and found this one that other people, quite a few other people had examples on how to do this version of it. And I liked this one a lot better. It was a lot easier to sew than the one that had the raw edges. And it just has a more professional finished look to it, in my opinion. This particular one does. The other ones, I guess if you're good at it, you could do them probably faster. But mine looked pretty messy, and my edges were not flat. I had a lot of wrinkles, and there was places where it didn't really catch good. The fabric didn't when I folded it under to sew it down. So I just was really unhappy with the end product of that one. So that's why I went and found this one. So if you're really confused by us doing it differently because of the pattern I gave you, I'm sorry. I had not, by the time I had given that out, I had not tried the project out yet. Hadn't had a chance, and so I didn't realize that I wasn't going to like the way that it was made. So it's going to gather quite a bit and bunch up, and we'll have to work on it a little bit to get it through all the way. But you want to work it all the way to the end. And be careful with your elastic, because you don't want to pull too much where the safety pin is located. You want to get a hold of it beyond that point to pull on it, because it'll rip a hole in it if you do it. If you grab a hold of the safety pin and pull on it. I've got a good hold on it with my fingers here. I'm just trying to feed the rest of that elastic through. Because it's bunched mostly on this end right here. I'm going to pull it out quite a bit so I can work it. And this is when you can decide if you want to cut more off of your elastic too. Okay. And let me grab my bowl that I'm going to put it on so I can kind of test it. Because you want it to gather as much around there as possible. I may end up cutting more off of mine. Oops. Okay, I do think that I probably do need to cut a little more off of mine. Let's see, where did I do it? Oops, darn it. At least an inch or so. And to test it, I will go ahead and I'm going to overlap the two and safety pin them together before I actually sew the two pieces together. Because you're going to want to overlap them whenever you're sewing them together too. Okay. I don't want them to move too much, but I want my elastic to come around. Alright, so I'm going to try it on my bowl. And I know I made mine smaller than I did my last one, so it's going to be a tighter fit. Okay, so this is, I think I cut about a ½ an inch off of it instead of making it 2 inches. So it still goes over the lip pretty good. So I like that. So I think I do like knocking off at least a ½ an inch instead of adding a ½ an inch instead of 2 inches. If you want to make sure that it goes over your bowl better, then 2 inches is probably better, because that is a little slippery and hard to. I'll show you again how the other one looked. So this one was adding 2 inches, which is a lot easier to get it on there. But it does roll under quite a bit more. because it's longer. See, and it goes, in my little bitty bowl, it really goes down the sides quite a bit. So it just kind of depends on your preference. Okay, so now that we're done with this, if you want it to gather more, you could cut even more off of your elastic, but that's going to hold, so I'm gonna go with that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand sew this. Just get a needle and thread, or if you want to sew it on your sewing machine, you could do that too. It's going to be a little more difficult. I guess I could go ahead and show it in case y'all want to see how to do it that way. But you can sew the elastic together on your sewing machine. It will be a little bit difficult because you got to take your pin out of it. And you are going to have to move your fabric away quite a bit too. And you want to make sure that you're laying it on top of each other the direction that it goes around. Oh, I had a gnat fly in my face. And I suppose you could, I'm going to pin it just a little bit. I'm going to try anyway. This is going to be kind of difficult. Well, maybe not. It's not cooperating, so I'm not going to pin it. And I'm going to take that piece out of the way too. So let's see how well. I need to pull it out some more because the fabric's going to be too close. I'm not going to have enough give. So, I wonder if I had some clips, because I really need to hold it together. Once you get it, I guess I could tack it in place with my needle, but that's kind of defeating the purpose of sewing it with a sewing machine. But I guess if you wanted to make it more secure, you could do it with a sewing machine after you sew it with your fingers, because you really do need to get it tacked down so it won't move. So I think I will do that first. So I'm just trying to get this one edge sewn down so it will stay in place. So I'm just going to do that little bit there. And then come back up. And I'll secure it more with my sewing machine. So I got that one edge. And I really don't, I'm not tying a knot because that's just kind of secure it in place. As long as it holds for me. Doesn't really matter what side I come across. Just want to hold it. Okay. Alrighty, I'll probably need a little more thread on that in a minute. Oops. My needle. Okay. Because I feel like it would be better to go ahead and sew it with the sewing machine, because it's going to do a better job of holding it in place. It's just going to be awkward. And they say a lot of times if you're going to be sewing elastic on your sewing machine, to do a zigzag stitch. So I think I might, you have to figure out how, let's see. Let me find some scrap fabric real quick, because I need a, you could do a straight stitch because this is just a small portion that you're sewing, but I'm just grabbing some fabric that I have, and I'm going to turn mine to the zigzag. Let's see, at number 3. And let me see how big of it. Okay. That should hit in the right places. I don't want it hitting wider than my elastic. But if you'll see, that's about the size of that zigzag I'm going to do. So that's not wider than my elastic, so that'll work. Because if you do the zigzag stitch, it's more, it keeps it from getting restricted on as far as, oh, my fabric's stuck up under there. You want it to be looser whenever you're sewing elastic. Let's see, that's not going to hit quite where I want it to. A little bit further over. Okay, and I'm going to manually do this just to make sure. Okay, yeah, that's going to do the way I want it to. Okay. And then I'm going to reverse. That's going to be okay. It's moving a little bit on me, but I'm just doing a basic. Alright. I've sewn over it a few times. That should hold it pretty good. I know it's a lot of threads, but I can kind of show you on both sides there. And I'm just going to cut all these little threads out of the way. Alright. Alright, so I'm just going to cut all these little loose threads. Anything, especially when you're dealing with elastic or stretchy fabrics, that's when you are going to use the zigzag stitch. That's very helpful for those types of things. If you want them to still be stretchy. If you don't want them to be stretchy, then yeah, you wouldn't want to do the zigzag stitch. I think I'm going to need a little more thread than this to sew it closed. So I'm going to just pull some off of my bobbin here. Let's see which one's my bobbin thread. There it is. Okay. So that's the last part here, is just sewing the hole closed. So I'm just going to hand sew it. If I can get my needle here, that's got a little fuzzy on the end. So it's not wanting to go through my needle. There we go. Trying to see around the camera to do this. And what I'm going to do is what they call an invisible stitch. I think they have another name for it besides that, but it's whenever you don't want your stitches to show. And see, mine's already, the fabric's already fraying a lot. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to work this part. Well, I wonder if it will move for me. I'd like that one piece of elastic to move out of that spot. I'd like it to be a smooth piece of elastic that's in the area. But I don't think it's going to move for me. So I'm going to fold it over my elastic here. And if you want to, you could always, since the pressing of it, you know, we pressed it earlier, it's not wanting to lay flat anymore, especially since everything's getting bunched up again. Let's see, I'm going to try to straighten it out a little bit. And I got little threads there. I think it might do okay. But you're going to just push that in the best you can. And you're going to start on whichever end's easiest for you. I might press it real quick. I know I keep saying that. Yeah. I think my iron is turned back off again. So I'm just going to, I don't think it's wanting to press for me. And there's something. I'm going to push that fabric back in there too, so it's not sticking out. That's going to make it kind of hard. Some of it's on one side and some of it's on the other of my elastic. Well, I think it will be better if I put it the way it is around on the rest of it. So, alright, so let me just get started here. I'm going to come up. You don't want to get your elastic. You just want to get your fabric. And I'm trying to come up as close to where the sewing part was. Get back in there. Okay. I've gotten way up in here where my sewing machine was sewing. You want to get up in there. Because you want to start on the inside. And if your fuzzies are still trying to stick out, use something to push the fabric back in there. So get it out of your way. So you can see the clean edge to do this. Because you want it nice and straight when you're doing this. So I'm on this side, and so you're going to come over to the other side and pick up just a little bit of fabric. You can be a little bit more than that, like about like that. And you're going to do it right on the edge. And then you're going to pull it tight. And then it's good to have it pressed because you can go along with the edge that's been pressed for you. Then you're going to come over to the other side directly across from where you were and put your needle through and tighten it up. And then you'll come back on your other side. My hand, I wish it would be a little more steady than that. And you're going to pick up. And once you get comfortable with that, you can actually go directly across the other side and pick up the little bit of fabric over there, like so. And you could do multiple stitches at the same time. You can go back and forth. Pick up, well, a little more than that. Like that. And then you can go back over to the other side. And so you could do several stitches at once, like that. And then pull it through. I pulled it kind of tight and then stretch it back out. And so I'm just going to push my fabric down in there and drop that a little bit so I can keep everything nice and flat. Okay, so come back on this side again and pick it up. I'll do one at a time too so you can see again. So you're just going on each side by picking up some of just a tiny bit of the fabric, right on the edge. And you always want to come directly across. Try not to really zigzag, really. And if it does draw up and bunch up your fabric a little bit, just pull it back out again like I've been doing. And you're just getting your fabric. You're not getting that elastic at all. Alright, almost done here. Okay, so I'm almost to the end. And alright, so now I'll make sure it's nice and tight, and then I'll flatten it. I know this is going to be a little more showing because this is not going to be a flat object. Usually when you do this on a flat object it's not as noticeable, but since this is going to bunch up, I probably should have done my stitches a little bit closer together. Okay, so I'm going to finish this off. Oops, I meant to get my knot a little bit closer than that. Okay. And then I'm going to just take it in. I'm going to feed this in there. Pull it out. So my tail will be on the inside. I probably should have knotted it closer to one of the holes so it would have went underneath the fabric. Okay. Alright, so this is it. And that is our project. So I'll put it on the bowl again to kind of show you. Alright, so that's it. That is the bowl cover, and you can do this for any size bowl that you want. And it's all cotton. If you use all cotton fabric and elastic and so forth, you could use it as a lid for a microwavable bowl. This, of course, is not a bowl you can microwave. But so if you don't have a bowl cover anymore for something that you used to have one for, and you want to microwave it and have a reusable one instead of paper towel or whatever, you could do that. Or they're really handy for, like, if you're doing picnics and so forth, and you want to cover your food up without the flies and stuff getting on it. That's something cute and decorative you can have. And then whoever's watching, now that that it's over with, we're at the end, go ahead and message me, do a little comment for me, and say what your name is, and then I'm going to write your names down, and then I'll do a little drawing here. So just comment and just say you're here or something like that. Let's see, this class was the crafting with Opal bowl cover class. Alright, so just do that, and then I'll do however many people say that they're here, your name will pop up in the comment section, and I'll write your name down, and then I'll do the drawing. I'll show you real quick while I'm waiting for people to do that. A class I'm going to do tomorrow that's a new one. It's called First Friday Crafts. It's a new thing I'm going to start. It's going to be at 10 o'clock tomorrow. I'm going to, like, for each one, probably do a different craft each time. This time I'm going to do some basic embroidery stitches. Let's see. Just kind of show you really basic embroidery stitches to show you how to do different ones. I'm looking at the list here. I'm going to try to cover as many as I can in an hour. I'm going to try to do the running stitch, back stitch, split stitch, stem stitch, chain stitch, straight stitch, which that one's the easiest one, French knot, and probably like a lazy daisy, possibly a blanket stitch, woven stitch, and fishbone, and it depends on how long it takes to do it, but I might do a few more than that. But that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow at 10 o'clock, if anyone wants to join me during that. It'll be recorded, so if you don't want to show up at 10 o'clock in the morning, then you could always just rewatch it later at a later time. Well, no one's making any comments. Can't believe nobody wants to win a gift card, because there is a $15 gift card in the running here. I guess if I don't give away tonight, then I could try giving it away tomorrow morning during my first Friday crafts. Okay, well, if doesn't look like anyone wants to say that they're here to win the gift card. It's you get your choice. I have a Hobby Lobby one, a Michaels or Joann gift card, and they're $15 ones, so I'd let you choose which one you would get. But okay, well, alrighty, let me switch this back to me. Alright, since I haven't had any takers on wanting me to do the drawing with their name, like I said, if you were interested, you would just comment in the comment section and say your name. I'm thinking my comments are still working. I mean, it looks like, I'll do a test real quick. I mean, it seems like it's showing up. I'll do a test, but no one seems to be commenting except for me. So, I just wanted you to comment so I could get your name and if you wanted to win a gift card. But it seems like there's 3 people watching, but nobody wanting to win the gift card. Okay, that's fine. I'll just try to do the drawing tomorrow during my other program at 10. So if you want to have a chance to win a gift card from Hobby Lobby, Michaels, or Joann's, just watch tomorrow at 10, and at the end of it I'll try doing the drawing again, because I've got the gift cards to give away, so I might as well try to give them away to somebody. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this time. Next week, for this program, I will be doing a knitting class, and we will have supplies to give away for the knitting class. You'll get a pair of knitting needles and some yarn, and I'm just going to cover the basic stitches for knitting, like how to cast on, and how to do the knit stitch. And if people catch on and they want to see how to do the purl stitch, I'll cover it too. It just depends on how it goes. So that's what I'll be doing next week. And I think the week after that is the messenger bag we'll be doing another sewing class for that, I believe. Hopefully I'm remembering that correctly, because I know there's 2. At some point I'll do a messenger bag this month. I can't remember which Thursday it is, because there's going to be another painting class this month. Actually 2 of them. One on a Thursday night, and then I'm going to have one on a Saturday. That one's going to be Saturday the 18th, around 1 o'clock, I believe. So, alright, well, that's this class for this week. Hopefully I'll see y'all tomorrow, if not next week. See y'all later. Bye.